Yeah, when did you get your new kitten?
We just got, well, dude, it's a long story. My friend's a police officer. He rescued this cat from a crack house, brought it back to his house, found out his son is
He went to
allergic, and
he went to America to rescue a cat.
no, I said a crack house. Canada has crack houses. We got lots of crack here, dude. Don't front on us.
Oh, that's awesome.
So
So
anyway, the
he
cat
named
ended up at
it
my house.
he named the cat kitten or Crystal.
Actually, yeah, we named the cat Addie Lemieux. That was Alex's idea.
Oh, nice French name.
Hmm.
Who wants to start this off for us?
You.
Fuck.
You gonna kick it off, Joe?
Well, I figured it would be a good way for us to introduce what HVLA, aka Hula Education Systems, is all about. So
I think we need to start this whole thing with a poll, and that poll should be whether or not we're gonna just drop the hula and just call it HVLA because it's confused so many people. There are like three people who messaged me. They're like, "What's a hula mean?" Like, oh, we just take the U and we make the V and make it look like a U.
yeah,
It sounds different.
I know. I mean, we can contemplate that as we move forward, but screw it. For now, we're sticking with hula.
Yeah.
But this podcast, we're definitely going to be calling Straight to the Joint.
It's perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, straight to the joint.
And I am Joe Cooperman. This is Dan Skinner and Demir, who no one
How's
knows
it going?
his last name.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
I like how we're past the doctor titles now. It's like for a while, there's Dr. Daniel Skinner, active release certified, FRC,
Yeah.
SFMA, DNS,
CPR.
signatures, CPR certified. Ah, that's a good. You know what? Have you guys used your CPR yet?
Thank goodness I haven't.
Jeez,
Yeah.
I did. What's it called? The Heimlich maneuver.
Yeah, but
Ooh.
not in
Sketch.
your office.
No, it was at a restaurant.
Oh. Don't worry, I'm a chiropractor.
Yeah.
That was my. Like, do you have any back pain? Because after this Heimlich maneuver, you're gonna have plenty.
Yeah.
They needed I was on a flight and they needed a doctor. They're like, oh, there's a medical emergency. Do we need a doctor? And I was like, I'm not raising my hand. And then they kept asking. I was like, I'm not raising my hand. And then they finally were like, just anybody with any sort of medical adjacent experience. And I was like, all right, like, and more so because I was an EMT before. And I went up there and I get up there and the guy's like having a heart attack. And there's a ER nurse and medical doctor and somebody else. I was like, oh, I'm fucking done. Like, you guys got it.
This man is
like,
having a heart attack.
Did you check that
You
atlas?
know what? I did see a really cool thing from back in the day with a guy that he adjusted a guy.
Oh God.
Was having a heart attack.
Did you send me that link?
Yeah, that was like back in like
innate
2015 or
intelligence,
something.
Man. It's not going to
So
restore
stupid.
itself.
Yeah.
That's right. Got that innate flowing. Turns out the guy still had the heart attack.
I believe it.
Yeah.
I believe it.
Turns out the neck and the heart actually aren't that connected.
The vagal nerve. Is it the vagal nerve?
Oh, dude. I remember in my internship, I had a great internship. I was pretty happy with it, but there was one point where one of the doctors I was working with, I'd gone and taken a couple extra chiropractic neurology courses through the Keurig Institute. And I got back and I remember it just gave me a real appreciation for how thorough of a neurological exam you can actually give. Like, we learn a bunch in school, but not to that level. And I think I was saying something about like, oh man, it really makes you realize like how much there is to know out there. And this guy was like, aren't we all chiropractic neurologists? And I was like, no, not even close. I think I thought it was just like, this idea that, we're working with the nervous system is like, I find it such an interesting concept because it's like indirectly everybody is. Trainers are, physios
Right.
are, chiropractors are, but like directly, like with the intention of looking directly at specific cranial nerves and using like neurostimulation techniques and eye saccadic movements and stuff like that. It's like it's cool stuff. It's like very like it's a level up on certain things.
Mm-hmm.
Agreed.
Definitely. I mean, yeah, you can definitely like go pretty deep on that neuro exam.
So I find it just impressive, and it's also good to know like when you reach a point where a lot of the time people they can get better quickly by restoring range of motion and through exercise and through behavior changes and stuff. But every once in a while you find a person you're just like, wow, this person's not responding, and there's something else that just doesn't feel right. And that's when I'll like refer out to a neurologist or someone else who's got a little more advanced training and that kind of stuff. So
speaking of chiropractic neurology or just any basic assessment and normal neurology, I had a new patient today who was being seen by another chiropractor. She went to two different chiropractors for knee pain. And we did the assessment, and I was like, yeah, you have sciatica. Like, it was clear cut, referral pain from a pretty bad disc. I was like, has your back been hurting? She's like, yeah. It's like, did they work on your back? They're like, oh, they mainly did like muscle work and like this, like, pin and stretch kind of thing. And I was just like, we're going to get you adjusted today. We're going to get you doing these exercises. You're going to feel a lot better because we're actually targeting the real thing.
Yeah, man, it's funny. Well, I think it's like it's so apparent because I think people are just so like time is just of the essence for so many people. They're just like, oh yeah, back hurts, knee hurts, whatever, and they just focus so much of their attention on that area, right?
Yeah.
Right. And I know the office that she went to, and it's a very quick exam, and in and out kind of place.
It's interesting because I had a new patient today who is like he's a 47-year ENT practitioner, surgeon, dealing with, I mean, his shoulders just don't move at all. But either way, we started talking. I was taking his history, and he was giving me mainly background about his life and things that he's done, endeavors that he's gone through, and like he kind of perfected some surgery in regards to the nose cavity. And he was telling me how he perfected this thing a lot of practitioners were afraid of, because the first person to do it sliced the optic nerve, and how they didn't understand three-dimensional anatomy when they were slicing into this region and how dangerous it can be. And so he talked about being a specialist. And then he said, and then he turned to me and he goes, but in your world, you need to be a generalist. You need to understand anatomy in general. And I was like, well, let's take it a layer deeper, because he's complaining about, he has arthritis and he can't move his arm and he doesn't want a total shoulder replacement. So we chatted about, you can have general range of motion assessment and general exercise prescription, but the more specific that I can get in regards to this region, so I can try to become a specialist of that shoulder, then that's how I get you your results that you're looking for, which is avoiding surgery. And he was like, oh, that's a really interesting concept to think about that. And from like by going global and then going specific.
Mm-hmm.
Nice tie-in, because guess what we do with HVLA education systems, aka HVLA, is we teach how to become more specific from a general concept.
Or even just starting general and build to specific is such a good way that we kind of structure our course too. But doesn't that also give you like a huge amount of does that also make you lucky that the mistakes that we make in work is not slicing someone's optic nerve?
Oh yeah.
Like, the worst thing that's going to happen is, Demir might make someone a little sore the next day, and that's like, a bad day. And it's, like, knock on wood, I've been pretty good in my practice. I've only had a couple people that have had major, complaints afterwards. And that's usually like, a little bit of ice and stretching and stuff takes care of it. But man, the thought of having all that on the table when you're, at the forefront of a new type of surgery, and the consequences you might take someone's eyesight down, that's nuts.
Yeah. That's pretty scary.
But that being said, also, I believe that adjusting the atlas makes your eyesight better. So really, in a lot of ways, aren't we all chiropractic neurologists?
Isn't that ENT a chiropractic neurologist in real life?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. So I'm Joe Cooperman, chiropractor out in Scottsdale, Arizona, owner of Active Health Spine and Sport. I'm partnered with Premier Fitness Systems here in Scottsdale. They're a fitness gym that's been around for about 12 to 13 years. They work in the athletics world, working with a lot of MLB, PGA, UFC athletes, pretty recognizable names around the Arizona parts and throughout the country. Been practicing for 8 years now or so, I think is when we graduated. Really love my job. We have a lot of fun every single day. I really enjoy working with every patient I come in encounter with, meeting people from all walks of life, from children all the way up to professional athletes, and just really having a good time with working and knowing these guys since we were in school. We all went to school together. I'll let Demir take over and say a little bit about himself.
Hey, I'm Demir. I'm in Chicago. We have a practice in a gym called Steel Fitness Club, just north of Chicago in a little suburb called Morton Grove. It's a big 8,000 square foot facility, and I have my little clinic inside there, treating very active people, from professional bodybuilders and some professional fighters to just regular run of the mill weekend warriors, mainly just people that are very active. You don't really get it into my office without knowing that you're probably going to be doing some exercises and some homework along with all the manual adjustments and things that you're going to get in office. Been practicing since March 2015. Was an associate a year out, and then since then I've owned my own practice. It's the best job in the world. I wouldn't trade it for anything else except teaching with my best friends. So that's pretty cool too. I'll let Dan finish us off, I guess.
And I'm Dan Skinner. I practice in Victoria, British Columbia. I've been here since 2015, like the rest of the crew, and have a very multifaceted practice. I work part-time in a multidisciplinary clinic. And then I also work 3 days a week at my own clinic, which is in a gym, Forge Training Systems. And it's cool because I get the best of both worlds. I get that very strictly clinical side, where some people like to see me in that respect. And then in another way, I'm kind of like in the nitty gritty of the gym scene. So if I have someone who has a complaint when it comes to strength training, we have the gym floor to jump out to right there. So I also work with our local baseball team here and a couple of hockey teams, and it's a pretty rewarding, enjoyable thing to be able to give back, especially since I had so much help when I was an athlete myself, and kind of similar to that same mindset when it comes to teaching too, is that I think the three of us came together with Chris as well. So Chris isn't with us today, but Chris McBroom is a chiro who practices out in Reno.
Yeah, just do his intro.
Yeah, give him a little pump of his tires. But
Yeah.
Chris was one of the guys, and he was a motivator in our group. He was always keeping us coming to seminars, keeping us on our toes when it came to studying and asking us questions and everything. And I think the whole thing is we came together because we were a group of people that just consistently pushed each other to and kind of had high expectations of each other. And that didn't stop when we graduated. We've just been at it ever since. And that's what we want to ultimately bring to HVLA. We want to make sure that we're driving the profession forward and passing on all the little tidbits that we learned along the way and helping people learn from our mistakes. And I think we all got a lot of satisfaction out of teaching in clubs and being able to, help kind of mentor younger students coming through. And we just want to continue with that because we feel like the profession really needs some guidance. It really needs some like a bit of a North Star to make sure that we're consistently moving forward. So it's one of the reasons why we brought this podcast together is we want people to have the opportunity to, ask us some questions, get to know us, and see what it is that we're bringing to the table. Because, in a lot of ways, we also learn when people ask us questions, and it really makes us search and see what it is that what we're all about. So that's what we're hoping to do for you guys out here in the internets.
Welcome to the webs.
Yeah. So
Podcast straight to the joint.
And maybe just a quick little up to speed too. So this whole thing started, I think, just because we were, obviously sitting together, and we're the kind of guys that were consistently reaching out to each other over the phone, texting, talking about patient loads, talking about how to schedule people, how to send out a MailChimp email, Demir's given us all of his intake forms, and we kind of always took that sharing information really seriously. And when Joe came up with this idea of doing a workshop and a seminar together, I think we all just jumped on it. We thought, oh, this will be great. We can all contribute a bit. And so Joe put on the first workshop not too long ago out in Arizona. And then we just got back almost a month ago from a workshop that all three of us got to help out at in San Jose, California, at our alma mater, old Palmer West stomping grounds, which was, in my opinion, that felt so good to be able to, especially after COVID, not being able to be in close quarters with people and being able to put something like that on was like really, that was special.
I agree. I think, I was talking about this with Joe a little bit, and I don't think we ever did a full big debrief after the seminar, but I guess this can be a pretty good avenue and source for that. Was just how good it felt to teach students that really wanted to learn. It like fills your cup up in more ways than, it's just very similar to when, you get a patient in office who's just like, anything you say, man, I'm here just to get better. I'm sick and tired of feeling this way. Let's go. Those are the kind of most motivating people that to work with. And it makes it just that much better on top of, teaching with your good friends and trying to kind of upgrade what we think can be a positive contribution to the profession. But on top of that, you're hearing these individual students and how excited they are just to learn the new things and new skills was pretty great.
Yeah, got me pretty excited going back to practice too, because you look at things with fresh eyes when you've been doing your thing for so many years and you've got a routine and everything, and you realize, oh man, these I don't even want to say kids because there's some people there that are older than me, but it's so cool and inspiring too, because it kind of brings you back to your roots and yeah, mm-hmm. I thought it was really cool.
Yeah, I would say overall that was a pretty successful group, right? We got to see some pretty cool changes really fast. I feel like the next day, on the second day, everybody really had wonderful ways of like expressing like better questions with how to utilize their body better. And I saw drastic changes with some of the people in there. I've been getting messages on the page of people saying, oh, I've been practicing this thing and, with my wife and this kind of thing has happened. I'm starting to get a better feel for it. And it's like, awesome. That's what it's all about, is continuous, relentless practice as you're developing this new skill. And, I think that for ourselves, like when we were teaching, it kind of I feel like it brought me back to when we were teaching the manipulation club or adjusting club or Gonstead club, whatever it was called, where it was just super laid back, really relaxed. It had a nice flow to everything. There's no, like extreme PowerPoint that we're trying to read at people. We're giving the most honest answers that we can get. There's nothing scripted about what we're doing. And there's also, we're not really reinventing the wheel, right? We're making the wheel more efficient.
It's funny because it makes me think back to like what I know that when we were in school, one of the things and especially I like this about our group is like, we were very low in the ego department. Like as much as we were trying to like, push each other and everything like that, we were also really quick to take feedback from each other. And if someone told you something, instead of taking offense to it, we're just kind of like, oh, sweet, thank you. And I felt like that was a huge shift in the second day. Like just watching people interact with each other. I think that there is like this fear when you're in school because you think that if you let any vulnerability be shown that people are like, oh, it's not going to make it in practice. This guy can't hang. But being vulnerable with people in your quarter, or people that you're working with or whatever, like it's part of becoming a better doctor and getting better with your hands and learning new skills. Because if you're just oblivious to that kind of stuff, or if people are saying, oh no, that felt good, yeah, that was all right, then you're gonna learn the hard way. And I feel like we've all kind of, that's inevitable, we're gonna learn the hard way over things, but the best you can do is just be as prepared as you can, and if anything, err on the side of over preparing. I think back to as well, it's like, what was it like when we were just in the position of these students, right? We had McClure, we had all these great mentors to teach us stuff. And that guy is probably the most humble dude I've ever come across in my life. That guy is like, not only is he super giving with his time and effort, but he's like terrific with his hands. And he used to just, I remember popping in when we go to seminars in Vegas and stuff like that. And he was the kind of guy who was like, hey, if you get the opportunity to work on somebody, if you get that privilege, you have to show up and you got to like really give them what they need.
Mhm.
And that's kind of something every once in a while, like I'll be having a rough day or I'll have a rough week at work or whatever. And I was just like, what would McClure do right now?
That's what I loved actually, even from his adjusting seminars, was how he made you every single adjustment like be present, stand in an athletic stance, like be prepared to deliver an awesome adjustment. Don't just go through the motions. That was always something I remember taking from his seminars.
Yeah. I remember when he would do this, he would take that stance. He'd be like,
Yeah,
this one's
yeah,
gonna take a lot of energy.
yeah.
These guys. But he had fun with it, like
Yeah. Don't blink, you'll miss
yeah,
it.
yeah, exactly. But like when it comes to those type of seminars, you could always tell like what was going to happen with a certain like person that was attending when they would practice it with like maybe one person, and they'd be like, oh, it popped, I'm good, I figured it out. Like they would have that like sense of I don't even know what the word is, but a sense of this like false confidence that they can do this to literally like everyone. And then you'd have the other group that was like trying to figure things out. Like they would do it to one person, then they'd switch partners. Then they do it to another person, they would switch partners. That was kind of us, right? We were the ones that were like, sweet, let's move on to the next person. Sweet, let's move on to the next person. Let's see what this one feels like in comparison to the last person. Because not all knees are created equally. Not all feet are shaped the same. Not all feet move the same. Um, and I think that sometimes, in school, we get overconfident, and even out of school, in practice, you get overconfident. You forget to like settle back in and realize that you've just been lackadaisy and not positioning not just yourself, but the patient in a decent position and leveraging, force differently. So I don't know. I feel like that's a really key point in regards to like you're never done practicing moves and developing skill. Like it takes forever. Like that surgeon I saw today, he's 47 years in practice. He didn't just like one day wake up and he was magically good at surgery. It's the same thing for manipulation, same thing for like McClure or whoever else is teaching out there. They're practicing relentlessly.
And I noticed that at the November San Jose seminar too, how the first day when the students showed up, they clearly had like a partner that they've worked with before there, and they all kind of clung a little bit together, and we had them, moving around. And by day two, everybody was much more comfortable of switching partners, of working on different body types, and I think that's so important, because going back to Dan's point on that constructive criticism, where you're just trying to like help each other grow. What better way to do that than practice with people of different sizes and shapes? And I think that was one key thing that when we made them do that, it's one of those things like it's going to be a little bit uncomfortable at first, but it's good for you.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
man, how crazy! Well, that just made me think of our trip to El Salvador. Remember how stumped we were? Like we'd been in, adjusting lab, working with young, able-bodied people, students, and feeling like we were pretty good. And then you go to El Salvador. We went for a like a kind of like a Doctors Without Borders kind of trip to help provide some care for some of the local people there. And then suddenly you're stuffed up against this particular body type, and you're you're just like, wow, how am I going to adapt my treatments to like this one particular body type? And that was when it kind of dawned on me. I think that was like one of the big moments where I was just like, oh, there's lots of different moves that we're learning, and it's about learning to apply which one at what time with what body type, and like if that doesn't work, what else can you try? And so it was like a big eye opener for me. And I think I remember after the first day, we were all kind of like, whoa. It's like
Yeah.
everyone here is kind of built the same. Everyone's got very similar structure and size and everything. And and we're all different ourselves too. Like I'm 6'3" and got long arms, and I can get away with some moves that someone else can't if they're a little bit on the smaller side. So I think it's also really cool to have different body types, different styles teaching that stuff. So yeah, we're getting to the point now where I think we want to keep these relatively short too. So I think hopefully everyone's gotten a chance to kind of hear a little bit about, what we're doing, where we're from, and what we're kind of trying to create here. And I think in the future we're gonna hopefully have some questions asked, and we can kind of bounce some ideas back and forth, because it's pretty boring if it's just the three of us talking. So it's nice to have some people giving us some direction on all that too. So send your questions into Joe. He'll proposition us, and we can go from there.
Yeah, I agree with that idea, but also maybe getting McBroom on here would be a good idea too.
Yeah. Now,
getting his
comment
family
below
food.
if you'd like Chris McBroom to.
Yeah.
Training his bird dog like constantly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's busy, man.
He's a busy man. But
Yeah.
people that are going to be listening to this, if they are, the next seminar that we're going to be hosting is going to be out at Palmer Davenport in Iowa. That'll be March 18th and 19th at the Black Hawk Hotel. So signups are live. I would highly recommend utilizing the early bird discount, which is early 100. We'll put some tags up on the Instagram and everything to make sure you guys have that available for you. That will eventually go away. So don't procrastinate, don't wait, and utilize that code. This is a weekend that's going to be unbelievably intensive and hands-on. So we're going to teach we're going to go through the whole entire spine. So we're going to do cervical, thoracic, lumbosacral, and pelvis. Then we're going to bust out into extremities, but also do cervical, thoracic, lumbosacral, and pelvis again on the second day, so that we have enough time to be getting diligent practice in, so that we can really fine tune how you're utilizing your body to manipulate someone else and figure out better leverage systems, and not utilize, long lever manipulation, putting force through physical joints to create an outcome that you're looking for, which is more motion in a joint.
Yeah, going from general to more specific.
Exactly. Look at that. Came full circle. So we'll put the links up. Make sure you guys have everything that you need in order to have a good weekend set up for yourselves. Demir, you have a closing note there?
Take care. Have a good night.
Brought to you by Zevia.
Peace. Thanks for getting this far.